Well, what we're hearing is militant groups Hamas and Islamic Jihad say they have reached a ceasefire agreement with Israel following the biggest flare-up in Gaza since the 2014 war. The agreement would see Israel halt airstrikes in Gaza and the militants would cease rocket attacks on Israel. Earlier Saturday, Israel had carried out heavy airstrikes across Gaza as Hamas militants fired around 100 rockets into Israel. 2 Palestinian teenagers were killed and 14 more Palestinians wounded. At least 3 Israelis have been reported injured.
It started early morning when we woke up to a launching of mortar shells. Since then, we have a couple of dozens of mortar shells and Qassam missiles fired at us, which is not something we're used to in the recent times. It's not something that is happening recently.
The Israeli military said it was targeting Hamas sites in Gaza in response to Hamas efforts to breach the border and harass Israeli communities. Israel had warned it was ready to step up the attacks if so needed.
After consultations with the defense minister, the chief of staff, and Israel's top defense officials, we decided on powerful action against Hamas terrorism. The Israeli armed forces delivered the most powerful blow against Hamas since the 2014 Gaza war, and we will increase the intensity of our attacks as necessary.
Then came word of this provisional ceasefire involving all of the parties. Hamas said the latest violence came after 2 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces Friday. Hamas had been leading protests against an Israeli blockade that has caused economic misery within Gaza.
Earlier, we spoke to our correspondent Noor Harazin in Gaza. She told us this is the heaviest Israel attack since 2014, and she reports that Hamas has denied Israel's assertion that the Islamic group is exploiting protests at the border.
We heard many explosions since this morning here in the Gaza Strip, and to be truthful, the people are really worried, especially that this is like the heaviest Israeli attack on the Gaza Strip since the last Israeli war on Gaza back in 2014. In many occasions, Hamas and the leaders of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh and Khalil al-Hayya, have in many occasions said that Hamas has nothing to do with these protests and they are by the people. They are only popular resistance, and when we talk to the people who participate in these protests, they also assure that they came out by themselves. However, Hamas do encourage people to go to these protests and to ask for their rights of return, and also to ask for their rights for the siege on the Gaza Strip to be lifted.
Noor Harazin, CGTN, Gaza.
U.S. President Donald Trump is in Scotland on the final leg of his visit to the UK. On Saturday was set aside to play a round of golf on his signature Turnberry golf course. Anti-Trump protesters rallied outside the resort on Scotland's west coast. In the capital, larger demonstrations were held. Trump's next stop, Helsinki, Finland, for a Monday summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin has been the focus of media attention. Despite the so far limited contact between the two leaders, Trump